The issue of social injustice has long plagued people of African descent all over the world. For over 400 years, African Americans have had to fight for equal rights and justice.
There is an appetency for an America with no discrimination and more opportunities.
Many lives have been lost, movements formed, and miles marched. Are we any closer to a truly great America?
Today, Black History Month, we take a look back to our recent years and explore what has been done and what can be done to get things better.
It's my time, it's my season, and I've got a good reason to open my mouth. I'm gonna let it out, open your mind, grab your friend, and hope you listen to the end. The vibe is good and learning meets on She Who Speaks. Welcome back. I hope you have watched part one. There was so much information. We've been blessed to have Shelly with us, and she is giving us the truth. Okay. I'll just for the sake of introduction, if you missed part one, we'll try to add the link so you can go back and watch that first. But I'm Renee, lover of a good laugh, all things behavioral. With me is Marilyn. She's unassuming with a good listening ear. We also have the love mean. She is our angelic voice and unstoppable force. Shelly is a visiting law professor at the University of A&M, and she is well-researched, well-written, awesome source of information. And we're so happy to have you with us. So the last time we kind of did a run-up of what our experiences are as international women who have lived in America and or experienced with racism both in our cultures and in America. We talked about the narrative of this is in America and the shock that so many people seem to have based on the boldness that has been experienced under the leadership of Donald Trump. We spoke about historically that this is America, and we've spoken about the impact of colonialism. We left off asking, is it even worth being hopeful for the Biden-Harris campaign? And Shelly, you shared with us that you are. And so we'll pick up the conversation. I'm just gonna throw it over to Marilyn to just get this conversation going.
Hi. Thank you, Renee. So we just spoke about the new president elected, which is Joe Biden. And a lot of people are on the other side disappointed. But we don't want to be biased. We want to give facts. And one of the questions that emerged through all this crisis leading to George Floyd being murdered and all the turmoil that we have witnessed throughout the 2020, we would like to know your perspective on the dichotomy between people who are supporting BLM and the social justice movement, and on the other side, people that think that, oh, this is an anti-police movement. This is something that is here to discredit our law enforcement community and people who have other values. So we would like to have your perspective on how to reconcile the fact that we want that justice and we want accountability in the law enforcement department, but we are not enemies. Yes. So we would like to have your perspective.
Yes, thank you, Marilyn. One of the things I think you said that was really important is let's work with facts. Mm-hmm. It is, and I think Renee said in our last segment, it is difficult to rationalize and reason with someone who is irrational, who it's hard to talk to someone who won't accept science and data and facts. Mm-hmm. So all we have to do is look at the number of unarmed people of color, and not just people of color, guys, it's poor white people that are also murdered by police officers.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes, let's look at those numbers and And C, was it reasonable for the officer to believe that deadly force was the only way of neutralizing whatever perceived threat there was? We're talking Philando Castile, who has
Yeah.
his girlfriend, he's in the car, and their child is in the back seat.
Behind. Uh-huh.
He has a license to carry his weapon. Police officer asks him to pull out, I believe, identification. As Philando Castile is pulling it out, cop shoots him. Girlfriend is live streaming him die. Was it reasonable for you to believe that this man with his child in the back seat posed a threat to you? And if you look at Philando Castile's physique, he wasn't even a large man. So, we can go through each case. Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, oh my goodness, Botham Jean in Dallas, who's sitting on, you remember he's from, I think he's from Antigua?
No,
Saint Lucia.
Saint
Saint
Lucia.
Lucia.
Yes, St. Lucia.
St. Lucia. This young man had just had oral surgery. Doctor had just approved him to be able to finally eat ice cream. He's so happy he can eat some ice cream. He's waiting on a football game to come on. Bless his heart, he's sitting on the couch eating ice cream when a murderer burst through his door and shot him dead.
Mm-hmm.
So what we'd have to do, in my opinion, as we go back to that truth and reconciliation, let's look at the facts of all of these cases. And there are hundreds of names that I could name. And let's look and see so as we talk about defunding, I do not believe we should defund police. I do believe we need to reallocate funds. If a call goes out and it is clearly a mental health issue, law enforcement should not be there. So one side saying, you just want to defund the police and we're enemies. And then you have the other side saying, defund the police. I think what we have to do is get together. Let's look at the facts and let's see where we can meet in the middle. In my opinion, there is no negotiating shooting unarmed people who are running away from you. There's a law called Tennessee v. Garner, and it looks at when deadly force can be used. It has to be a fleeing felon who poses a risk to the public or to that officer. That is the only time deadly force can be used. And so I think as we look at the funding of police organizations, reallocating funds for mental health issues, reallocating funds for having a healthy outlet for youth when they get out of school, an idle mind is the devil's workshop, as our grandmas all said. When you don't have something positive to do, you find something negative to do. Let's use some of that money and make football fields, basketball courts, science rooms where kids can go and learn how to sew, do crafts, learn about astronomy, learn about being a plumber, an electrician, whatever the thing is. So that is what I believe when Black Lives Matter talks about defunding the police. That may not be the best phrase. I believe it should be reallocation of funds.
You said something because as I was trying to prepare for our time together today, I'm looking on, and it's just sad that there's so many examples just in the last 2 years that we can pull from. And I thought about Breonna Taylor. She was not the only female, but the more popular. Mm-hmm. And there was no justice for her.
That's right.
There were so many things that were done for all of the men of our community who suffered a horrible state at the hands of police officers, but no justice for Breonna.
That's right.
Excuse me.
That's right. You're right.
Can you talk to what message is that sending to us as Black women about our worth in this society?
Yes.
Where it's okay for you to come in and shoot us in our sleep and nothing happens.
Yes. And let me say, one of the myths is that she was sleeping. She actually was not. She had gotten out of the bed. So they hear a beating on the door. The boyfriend got out of the bed first and was walking towards the door. Mm-hmm. She got up and was also walking right behind him and had just kind of come around him in the hallway. So when she was shot, she was in the hallway. She had been sleeping, but she was shot in the hallway. So just an FYI. Thank you. But I think it is so funny that you asked that question, because on a panel I served on earlier today, the person who was running the panel, the moderator, asked every single person on the panel, do you have a problem with interracial relationships? I was the only one that said I do, and this is the issue I have. I believe women of African descent, we are not seen as beautiful or voluptuous or sexy or lovely. And so all you have to do is look at the media, look at the movies. Y'all, almost every single movie that is made, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's a white man or some man working to save the honor of a white female. Almost every movie, Tom Cruise's movie, James Bond's movie. So what that sends is a message is that we're not beautiful, we're not worthy, we're not sexy, we're not desirable. And so in my criminal law class, I tell my students, we have placed a value on victims in our criminal justice system. The top of the ladder is a young, white, blonde hair, blue-eyed female whose parents are wealthy or influential. And it goes down from there. At the bottom of that pole is a black, dark-skinned female prostitute. And everybody else falls in that. Okay, so Shelly, what makes you say that? I was a criminal prosecutor for a few years in the capital of Texas, Austin, and I saw recommendations being given for crimes that would be given to people of color, and white people with similar criminal histories would not get that recommendation. I saw it. I didn't read it in a book. Nobody told me about it. I was a part of that system. And that is why I stopped being a prosecutor, because I could not continue this discrimination that is clear in our criminal justice system. So as you think about how we allocate resources, even in healthcare, we had an attorney who went to she's an attorney, y'all. She's not somebody who dropped out of school and has 3 teeth and finished the 3rd grade. She's an attorney. She went to the hospital. She had something wrong with her. They did not give her good medical treatment. She told them something is wrong with me. She ended up going back to the hospital. They sent her home again. She finally filed suit because she was suing because she was being discriminated against in the healthcare industry. Like 2-3 days before the suit was to take place, she died. Serena Williams. Y'all know Serena Williams?
Yeah.
Serena Williams talked about the medical care she received as a pregnant woman. And yet this woman, Serena Williams, got a ton of money. Yeah, we might not have a ton of money. She not only has a ton of money, she has a voice, she has a platform, she has a stage, and she also was discriminated in healthcare. So the message I think that is sent, Renee, is that women of color, specifically women of African descent, are not valued. We are not seen on the same scale. Okay, so y'all have heard of Polly Klaas, and maybe if you're not American, Polly Klaas was a little white girl who was kidnapped as a child, and she was abused, and it was horrific. You remember there was a white girl who went to Antigua. She got kidnapped in Antigua. Like there are all these, we have laws named after little white girls that have gotten kidnapped. What? We don't get kidnapped? Yeah. We don't get stolen? We not raped? We not robbed? Hell yeah, we are. And so it shows the value that this society places on us. And it is incumbent upon us to make sure that our value is known, that we value one another, that we see our value coming from Christ's eyes, not the eyes of the world.
Wow. I hear your Christian background, if belief system, if I'm not wrong. So I studied law as too in France, and I also and I'm also a Christian. And something that one of the first things that I've heard when I told my community that I was about to pursue a career of law, if like it's pointless, because it's a demonic system. So you're basically contributing in that demonic system. But my take of it is like, I know how law impact the world. And I was, my thought was, I want to have an impact at my level in that sphere. But I didn't find the support around me, at least in France, no shade, but that's just fact. Yeah. That to be involved in politics, in law. So then I made a research regarding the promotion of human rights in within using the Seventh Day Adventist Church as a case study, but I could have done this study in different religion. The point was, I do believe that as a Christian, this is our world. This is the world we live. I know we're going to a better home, but right now this is where we at, and I do believe we need to make an impact. So because I hear you, I hear your history, and I hear you being this law teacher. So give us your perspective about our action as Christian, and what we can do at our level according to your experience.
Yes. And so one of the things I think that, so I have not been Seventh-day Adventist very long. And so I may not know all of the Seventh-day Adventist.
Yeah,
you guys.
I'm talking about Christianity.
Okay. So one of the things that I think about is Christ was a social activist.
That's
he
right.
advocated on behalf of the widows and the orphans and the poor. Christ befriended the outcasts of society. Zacchaeus, who was a financial person and seemed very low, people didn't like him, like the IRS. Christ said, I'm coming to your house today to eat. He hung out with prostitutes. He hung out with people who were the dregs of what we would call society. He was a social activist. He said, I come to seek and to save the lost.
Yeah.
He didn't come for the rich and the influential and the wealthy. And so I believe that we have to work, love mean, in the system in which we find ourselves. And I think I don't know if it's too late for you to consider going to law school, but one of my platforms is to encourage, especially young girls of color, to pursue a degree in law, to go on to become lawyers and judges, because this is how we make an impact. Renee, when you talked about the value that we as women of color have, this is how we make that impact. So love mean we one day can be a true Make America Great Again, where people in other countries can look to America and say, they didn't used to have it right. They had a lot of stuff wrong, but they have worked hard to get it right. Look at the United States Supreme Court. We have had 2 African-American males serve on the United States Supreme Court, and Clarence Thomas is not really he does not have African-American interests at heart at all. As a matter of fact, his wife is tied to being a part of the riots that took place in the Capitol last week. His wife, who's Caucasian. But and I don't know that to be true, but it's a story that I read. So I would encourage young people everywhere to not only pursue a degree in law, but there are even a smaller number of women of color who are law professors. You know, I'm in my 50s and I'm just now at a school where I have a mentor who's an African-American female who can tell me, Shelly, do this, don't do that, go here, go there. And I'm not going to lie. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I got here just through the help of men and they were not Black men. One, he's Hispanic and Native American mix. Bill Pyatt is his name. And another one, his name is Jeff Adicott. And believe it or not, he's actually a Republican. But that man took me under his wing. He showed me things to do. And so I believe each one reach one. Christ, when I see him face to face, I want to be able to say, Lord, I did everything you asked me to do. And so when I see young people, y'all, I'm talking little girls. I live next door, the house right next door, got 2 little white girls. And I was outside in the yard one day and they outside chalking on the ground. And I said, let me ask y'all this. What do you plan to do when you grow up? And they're like, she was 4. Okay, well, you might want to consider being a lawyer. I know you think you're going to be a genie, but or a unicorn or whatever. And her dad came out. And her dad was like, wow, that's really good that you're saying these things. It's the truth. But I want to encourage the love means of the world. You can do it. Don't feel like this is some demonic industry. This is what governs our lives. Lives of where rules and regulations and laws and policies. Going back to Renee and her husband driving through the neighborhood. If there was some crazy law that you can't drive around the neighborhood with your baby unless you're taking the baby to daycare. And, you know, we're thinking, they will never make a law like that. You'd be shocked at the laws that are on the books. So I want to encourage every single young woman to consider not just law, but, you know, other careers.
Right.
Thank you so much for your encouragement.
And one of the factors that I think is important in our conversation today is empathy. We have, and if people have this empathy factor, that would change the world, and that would change their perspective on how Black people are treated and how we need to do better. This is my driving force, because coming from France, as we mentioned before, we had a different perspective. But because now I have two Black children living in America, two boys, my perspective, I need to get educated. I need to know better. I need to do what I need to do to protect them. And I think I can speak for Renee as well when I say that, and Love Me also with her daughter. So I think that if we had that, if everyone could get that empathy and put themselves in other persons, their neighbors' shoes, they would understand how important this is. And this brings me to my next question to you. So what can we do as parents to protect our children against this biased society?
Wow.
Yes. Oh, this is such a difficult conversation, because you're basically almost telling your child that you have to live by a different standard than other people's children do, but they do. And so one of the things I would think is have these frank discussions with them about race. I don't know if you guys know, but the beginning of law enforcement, this is where police forces came from. Right at the end of slavery, the South had to find, okay, so let me back up a little bit. The reason Lincoln was against slavery is because he knew the North, which had no free labor, could not financially compete with the South, which had free labor. That's why Lincoln was like, yo, we got to stop this. Not because he believed it was inhumane or because of empathy. He knew financially America would be torn apart if the North continued to try to work and pay everybody, and the South work and just pay white people, not pay the free labor they had. So from that, when slavery ended, now we have all of these slaves, and we have no more free labor. And so you guys may not know, but the 13th Amendment is what allowed slaves to be free. There's a loophole in the 13th Amendment that says if a person has been convicted of a crime, you can make them a slave. Go and read it. As a matter of fact, there's a
Netflix documentary.
Yes, Marilyn. Yes, Marilyn, how old are your sons?
5 and 2.
Okay, and Renee, your baby is 1?
1.
And Love Me, your daughter?
Is about to turn 4.
Okay, this is probably too young for them, but you should watch it. It's called 13th on Netflix. You don't have it, I'll give you my passcode. You can use my. You got to see, you have to see this movie.
I'm getting that to myself, yep.
Yes, it is unbelievable how our criminal justice system has allowed people to be enslaved. So back to the question. When slavery ended, they created these forces, these groups to go and track down slaves for any kind of infraction. If your shoes weren't tied, if you didn't walk so many steps in between a sidewalk, and they would arrest you. And once they arrested you for any petty crime, well, now you can be a slave again. And so that's real. That is not something I just made up. You got to watch this movie. Ava DuVernay made it. And so that is how we came up with law enforcement, y'all. That was the beginning of law enforcement, was white men looking for escaped slaves or looking for people who had been enslaved so we could charge them with the crime to put them back into slavery. So how we could think that law enforcement can now somehow be fair without that truth and reconciliation, without us recognizing the racist, oppressive roots that law enforcement started with.
I'm sorry, this was not even on my scope to ask, but I have to ask this now. Where can people go to learn the true history? Because I feel like these things are taught in school.
Yes. And Renee, one of the things I would encourage people to do is you got to just do some research. There are great books. If we take one more break, I'll go run into my other room where my office is, and I'm going to bring some books in and show you guys. I don't make any money off of these books. I just bought them on Amazon, but they really are those resources that I told you. I think white people need to go and look up. We need to look it up too, so that we, like y'all, for instance, the Tulsa bombings that took place. But Renee, are you here in Orlando?
Yes.
Okay, you know Ocoee?
Yes, you know.
Did you hear about the race riots that happened in Ocoee?
Yes, the massacre, yes.
Yes, the same thing that happened in Tulsa, except for there were no bombs dropping from the sky, happened in Ocoee. And it was all stemming from voting rights. A Black man decided he was going to go and vote, and the white people came into that town and massacred people. And then, but even worse, they took their land. So land is money. And so this is how we learn from just doing this research. And I'm not going to even lie. It's dark. It's depressing. It is heavy. But this is how we educate our children. This is how we can't educate them if we don't know.
One of the tools that I use to know about Ocoee and what happened is I have an app called History near me. And sometimes when you click on like the map, you see like different things that happen, and some of them like I said, that's how I knew about Ocoee and how some of the cities that we have are like historically Black here around us. And
Orlando.
Yes, so if you can download that app, that is very, very enlightening. Like
yes. I found out about it because, look, I've only been in Florida for a year and a half. I went on Facebook Marketplace to buy a shelf. I got to the man's house. It's a gay white man. Nice guy, Sal. I guess he kind of figured I was militant. And he said, I got to tell you about something. And you might want to know about this. So just be careful if you ever go to this area. And so I looked it up and researched it, and it is horrific what happened in Ocoee, Florida, not that long ago, within my lifetime. I was born in 1967, so I believe it's been since 1967, and it was horrific. So, but one of the things I think, just making sure that your children understand the dangers that they can face, not following simple directions. Sometimes you would say dress in a suit and tie, but you know, we have people that are shot down no matter how they dress, no matter how they talk, who they hang with, what they look like. Look, my oldest son just graduated with his master's in chemistry. And if a cop stops him, what is Nathaniel going to do? Look, I got my master's in chemistry. No. What do? You know? And I think a lot of it, guys, we just have to trust. And I don't mean to even say it like, well, we ain't got no other choice, but we got to trust God.
We have to.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and I'm hearing that, and I remember before our son was born, my husband and I were talking, and he was saying, what are some of the things we're going to teach him? And again, eternal optimist, I'm like, I don't know if I want to teach him certain things. But you know what? They start off being cute, and everybody wants to ask, what's his name? Then he grows taller, and his voice drops a little. And, you know, he goes from cute to all of a sudden the same cute little boy is scary just for breathing. So, I mean, this is just a sad reality that we have to endure. And I guess my question to you is, what are some practical things that we can do if we...
As a recap, because you did share a lot of tools for us to go to deal with the social injustice. But as a recap, how can you help us? Give us tools like
if we've been discriminated against or profiled, like what do we do?
So and depending on the age, and I'll start older. Let's say your children are in the workforce, especially females. I would strongly suggest that whenever a female is having an interaction with a counterpart, especially a boss, that they record the conversation. You can get an app on your phone that will secretly record conversations. And I know some people right now who might hear this later, they might say, but there are states where it's against the law to record someone. Yeah. Well, let me just tell you, this is from my personal experience. Before you get to suing, you have to go through mediation and arbitration. That recording will stop you from getting to the lawsuit. So
Okay.
just something I want you to think about, especially girls. If a female has a meeting with a supervisor and it's an oral meeting, she needs to get back to her desk and say, hey, Jimmy, per our conversation, blah, 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 blah. Always keep a paper trail.
Yeah.
And this is on the work level, guys, because I'm even thinking about inequity in pay. And maybe we could do another session on that. Yeah. But as they get younger, for especially for boys, make sure they have goals, and girls, make sure you have dreams and aspirations. Watch the company you keep.
Yes.
If your African-American son is with his best friend, Billy Bob, who's white, and Billy Bob has the marijuana in his pocket, by the time they make it to the police station, that marijuana will not be in Billy Bob's pocket. It'll be in your son's pocket.
Right.
Watch the company you keep. Not everybody who smiles in your face is your friend. Ask the Holy Spirit for the gift of discernment. God, the Bible says whenever we are faced with a temptation, if we call on God, he will always give us a way out. So even when we are crazy and we do things we shouldn't do, God is so good. He will still give us a way out if we call on him. So teaching our children, I love you. You are going to make mistakes. If you ever find yourself in a jam, you need to call on God, but you need to make good choices. One thing that is our voice is our vote. The mainstream society has found out a way to keep us from voting. So here in Florida, everywhere, if you are found to be guilty of a felony, you lose your right to vote. Well, Florida just enacted a law, no more. You can get your right to vote back as long as you pay your fines and your fees. But guys, even that they tried to mess with recently in this last election, but that's something that I got to think of. Why would mainstream society, mainly white people, seek to disenfranchise you from your vote? What does committing a crime have to do with voting?
Yeah, you pay your taxes.
Come on.
That's right. They don't say if you commit a crime, you don't have to pay taxes anymore. Right? So think about it. Your vote is your voice. Your vote is just you saying, I want Maryland to be my mouthpiece in Washington, D.C. or in Nashville or in Austin or whatever the capital is where you live. I want Maryland to be the one speaking for me. So I'm going to check Maryland's name on the form. What does me having robbed a bank mean that now I don't get a voice? Because I committed a crime? That should let you know just how significant our vote is. And I can tell y'all, with everything that just happened in Georgia the other day with Warnock and Ossoff winning and all of the voting, push out that they had going on, I can tell you right now, Georgia is passing rules and regulations so that won't happen again. So making sure our children run it when they're eligible, run for political office, run to be judge, run to be congressman, run to be senator, whatever the thing is, make sure your voice is heard with love and, respect.
Of course.
I'm not saying go out there yelling, cussing and fussing. Sometimes there's a place for yelling, cussing and fussing, but sometimes there's not. But I would teach my child, guys, one of the things I have two boys. One is about to be 22 in 2 days. The other one is 28. I would always walk with a brown crayon and a brown marker because when people would give my kids coloring books or books, we're not white. We're my marker. And I would color it in. You guys don't have that issue now because there are a whole lot more books with brown people. But I can tell you that's because Shelly was the one cussing and fussing that everything was white.
That's true. Oh,
thank you.
Mercy. It's those little things that it's such a privilege to not have to think that deeply about everything. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about as you shared how policing started and how the fact that if you committed an offense, your rights were taken, and you can see the subtle things and the progression that happens to silence the voice of the black woman, the black man. And if you do not understand that, you see it as, oh, here comes loudmouth, Renee, Loudmouth, Shelly, Love Me, and
Yeah.
Marilyn.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. There's so much power, heavy though it might be sometimes, in knowing the truth for yourself.
Yes.
Um,
One of the negatives, though, in the pressures that we face as people of color, this pressure of racism and discrimination and oppression, guys, it manifests itself in our health. So we generally will have high blood pressure
let us-
and heart disease and cancer. And so, as young women of color, I strongly encourage you, if you are not the kind of person who exercises, you need to exercise
Mhm.
every day. You need, y'all are very young. And if somebody had told me this when I was in law school, for 30 minutes every day, your butt needs to be moving. You need to be cognizant of what you put in your mouth. Look at it and ask yourself, did God make this or did man make this? If man made it, you need to think twice about it. You need to manage your stress level. You need to do something that makes you happy. You need to get out and get some sunshine. The darker we are, the more difficult it is for us to get vitamin D from the sun. Lack of vitamin D creates other medical problems. So we have got to make sure that we take care of ourselves. Do not, y'all are all small. I really mean this. Make sure you exercise and eat right, drink water, because your metabolism is going to slow down one day and you're just going to be breathing air and gaining weight.
Ooh, I feel like I'm there. Oh,
Yeah, me too. Me too. I am
I
definitely
feel like I'm there.
that point.
The
That
shift.
point. And that's very important. It brings me back to my first experience with law enforcement. I remember it was right after the Trayvon Martin case, what happened. And I remember, so I was traveling to Guadeloupe and we were taking the road from Miami to Orlando. And then I mean, it was raining and we forgot to like put our lights and to take off our light. It was raining and then it was not raining and we
Yeah.
forgot to take off our big lights. So the police officer came and I was like, I was almost crying. Like I was so scared.
Mhm.
And it's something that I don't want to live my life in that type of fear because of who I am and for my husband, for my sons. And I feel like it's so important to have all these tools and all this knowledge. And as you said, this trust in God, this rooted trust in God,
Amen.
to know that if they don't have our back, he got our back.
Hallelujah. Marilyn, I think that's a good point. And I'm not a doctor, but think about that. So imagine how much your heart rate went up and then it went down. And all of this up and down, guys, that we live every day. Renee, you going outside afraid that your baby could be hurt with your husband, with this lady. Heart rate up, heart rate down. You don't know if you're going to get that promotion coming up, even though you know you deserve it. Heart rate up, heart rate down. All of that impacts our health.
Yeah.
It's like a continued, PTSD normally happens after the fact, but it's constantly living in the trigger.
Yes.
It's horrible. Yeah.
You
Yes.
say it right?
Yes. Like we are continually under trauma.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
That's when you talk about her physical health, I was also thinking about her mental health, the impact on our Black men living in sometimes really challenging neighborhood and have to always being in a survival mode,
Yes.
or even feeling like they never do whatever they do is never enough. They will always have this glass ceiling despite the fact they overqualify for whatever they're doing and have the pressure of providing for of the family. And like I'm thinking about all of that, so I there's no doubt. One day I was watching a show and it was an actor saying this: it's almost impossible for a Black man to not have trauma in America. And that's really stuck with me, because it's true. At the end of the day, that environment is not pleasant it's for growth. So you always have to fight, or have to explaining yourself, defending yourself. You never know how people are going to react, how people are going to perceive you. You always have to, okay, which mask I'm wearing today to make sure that I can be accepted. So it is mentally exhausted to. I can, yeah. So thank you so much for all those great advice, and it was so refreshing to have a conversation with you. I thank you for the encouragement too.
Yes, yeah.
My pleasure.
Like already on a personal level, even if anyone has to listen to our conversation today, I feel like so full and so enriched
Yes.
what I heard today. That
Yeah, me too. And you know what's funny? I never have political conversations.
wow.
Just because there is a heaviness that comes from feeling like you're not believed, you're not understood, you're not heard. And so this is exactly part of why we are doing this as She Who Speaks, because one of our missions is just to create community, to create support for women primarily and men to be able to feel free and find their voice. We don't do hate speech, we don't do bullying. We're just here to lift each other up. You know what though, Miss Shelly, I'm gonna kind of plug and put on camera if you can come back and talk to us, because I feel like
Yes,
you
you
can
have
talk
to
to
come
us.
back. You have to
You
come back.
have to.
You
No
have
pressure, but pressure. But
Happily.
you have to.
Yes. You know, they say to whom much is given, much is required. And God has been very good to me. And really, love me and Renee and Marilyn, I wish that I had this kind of platform when I was 20 years younger, because I have navigated through life really, and I don't want to act like God hasn't been there for me, but really just me and the Lord. And just this morning, if I could say to my younger self, to my 23-year-old self graduating from law school, not every battle is yours to fight. And so, y'all, I want to share that with you. As women of color, especially in marriages, it is so hard to know when to say, it's cool, baby, we can do that. Because you're always feeling like you might be under attack. Not every battle you got to show up for. And it takes two people to argue. So there may be days when your husband is saying something and you thinking you are whacked out. You look him in the face and you say, no problem, sweetheart. Y'all, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. And so I'm on marriage number 2. I don't want y'all to be on marriage number 2. If you married the wrong person, that's one issue, but that's not what I'm talking about. I want y'all to know your worth is determined through Jesus Christ. Not man, not your husband, not how small your waist is or how long your hair or eyelashes are. Your worth comes from the holy God of the universe. And you don't have to feel like, because y'all, this is my struggle. Especially people come up at me the wrong way. I'm not just coming after you. I'm coming after you to kill you. I have to work on this every day. You don't have to kill everybody. Calm down and let God fight your battles. Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Go and be great. That's really what Joshua 1:9 says.
And it applies to everything, to what
everything,
to our relationships, to everything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to close this out? Because I literally have no words.
Just thank you so much to come for being with us, for your word of wisdom, for your genuine personality, and sometimes when people have so many experience, sometimes they are selfish, like they they're not selfish, but they're so stingy, I guess, to share what they experience. And what I appreciate with you is the fact that you were so honest, so transparent, and so vulnerable, and we really appreciate that, and that's why you need to come back.
Yes.
Because it cannot be the only time we have you tonight. This is the beginning.
Right.
We're adopting her. She's on
Yeah.
now. She has no choice. We know where you live. Karen and I are local, so we'll come find you. Yes.
I am really proud of you girls. Y'all have done an amazing job. Really, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
So, as always, as we're all emotionally just we're overflowing. I don't even have words. I thank you so much for hearing our hearts, for hearing our desires and our truth, and For vulnerability, we do take great care in making sure that we bring to you things that are relevant, things that you care about, things that can make a difference. We might not be able to change the world, but we sure can start with our circle. And so thank you for being part of our circle. Don't forget, one of the ways that you can affirm and support us to drop comments, let us know what you're thinking, like, subscribe, share. If there's something that's on your heart and you really want us to discuss it on this forum, don't be afraid to send us an email to the SheWhoSpeaks podcast@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to discuss that for you. And can you help us just applaud Miss Shelly for her hard work, her contribution? We really appreciate you. And again,
Jam.
thank you for tuning in. And if you haven't watched part one, you need to watch part one. As always, love, support, blessings, well wishes. I am Renee, and this is She Who Speaks. Bye-bye.